United States, making it seem like we were a problem and we were a drain on their employment prospects and wages. So now they're using us to do the same thing, to keep our eyes off of who's making those decisions and how the economy, how this racist economy is structured. That's all I'm saying. That's
correct.
That's all I'm saying.
With the one final point, and what you just said, what's the issue with paying people $31,000 a year if you be giving them $15 an hour? That ain't got nothing to do with color. That just has to show, okay, you going, it's going to cause all that. I don't know no one who can live just in certain, unless you're living in the Badlands of Philly.
Yeah.
Right? Less than $650 a month for a one-bedroom apartment in a decent area where you have your little spurts of crime, but it's not as frequent.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
that's true. Kenny, this was a fascinating conversation. This is the kind of conversation I want to have with, and I actually want to. I got to let you go, unfortunately, but call back again because I want to continue that conversation. But let's try to have the conversation, everyone. If you are going to push that argument, got to see the numbers. But Kenny, I appreciate you because Kenny's raising some good points, and I do think overall we do need to flesh it out. All right, let me take a break, and when we come back, I think we have Mike Green coming up next, and phone lines do remain open. Maybe I ask Mike about it, get his thoughts on it. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of eating the same thing day after day? Is ordering takeout starting to get a little old? If so, then give Premium Nutrition Meals a try. With Premium Nutrition Meals, you get to select new entrees each week from several different menus, all chef-crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered right to your door. Just go to PremiumNutritionMeals.com to order to earn rewards today. WURD listeners receive $10 off orders of 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWURD at checkout.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD works.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDRadio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Joining us now is Mike Green, economic strategist, also co-founder of the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness. Go to niicusa.org for more information there. Phone lines do remain open in case you have a question or you want to join in on the conversation. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. What's happening, Mike? I love the Philadelphia Flyers look, the orange and black, the Broad Street Bullies look. Even though I know that's not what it is, but we appreciate it nevertheless.
Oregon State University.
Okay, that's all right. That's what's up. I love the orange and black. So I've got a few of my Broad Street Bullies T-shirts too. But thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it as always. Hey, Mike. We were having a good I think it's a healthy conversation. Having a little back and forth with some folks about immigrants and about the impact that immigrants have on Black workers. That data, that's something that I haven't spent a whole lot of time sitting down and unpacking copiously. I know that there's not like this big massive trend. It's not so much about the immigrants themselves as it is about the structure of the economy and the decisions that are made by policymakers, folks at the top, and also ongoing white supremacy. a whole host of other issues. But I want to get your thoughts on it and see, where that conversation should go. Because I'm seeing it come up because people are like, why is Biden, after black folks won the election for Biden, why is he focused on immigration? But immigration is one of many issues that he's going to be doing stuff on his first day. Immigration, climate crisis, he's got a whole lot of stuff he's going to be focused on. And whether I agree with some of those things or not, but immigration is not the only thing he's going to be focused on tomorrow.
Well, at the end of the day, we learn a lot from history, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Immigration is one of the biggest issues that faced this country from the time that the first immigrants got here and found a whole continent full of 600 plus nations of tens of millions of black and brown folks. And those immigrants had a different thought about what immigration meant. Immigration didn't seem to mean a whole lot to white folks when they immigrated, when they took over Texas and fought a war with Mexico to take that up. So, and then when we get past the Civil War, we look at immigration where the Chinese Exclusion Act came into being. So white folks didn't like the Chinese coming here and taking over the jobs that they believed were theirs. They kicked out nearly all the Chinese. And then they, because other Asians came here to fill that void, they kicked them out too. Systematically, the Koreans, the Japanese, you keep going down the line, you find that there's this focus on this notion that anybody that's coming into areas that are controlled by white people, they feel like that's an imposition and the taking of jobs away from white people. Now, that actually pertained to us as black people. For 70 years, we were immigrants in our own land, running from the south to the north and the west, and everywhere we went, people would, they come in here, they working for lower wages, they taking our jobs, we hate these black folks because they are a threat. Now, here we are again, talking about immigration, and here these poor folks looking for a better way of life, coming across the southern border. These are brown folks looking for a better way of life. Right. And such black folks who did exactly the same thing, coming from the south of this country, going to the north and the west, are now being pitted against these brown folks, doing the exact same thing that we were doing, looking for a better way of life and working hard to try and make a living for our families. Man, I got no beef with these folks. If we have a problem because we are not getting the kinds of jobs and the kinds of opportunities that we want, well, guess what? We have the ability to organize. We demonstrated that in the 50s and 60s. We have the ability to create strategies to create our opportunities within the framework of this country. I'm not going to pit myself against another person who's trying to do the same thing that I'm doing. What I'm going to do is focus on what I can control and what I can do.
Yeah. You make a really key point there. You just made it a couple of moments ago. The notion that any influx of people that don't look white results in the taking of jobs from white people. So now it's like, and that notion's always been there. It's been in the American DNA, the American conversation, American politics, etc. So we have to be
white American conversation.
Right. This is a white American conversation. Right. It's funny too, because I had someone who was telling me that like we were going back and forth. I'm like, well, he's not focused on, like, for example, black issues on that first day. I'm like, well, climate crisis is a black issue. And they're like, no, that's not. But trying to argue with me that immigration is a black issue. I'm like, no, actually, immigration is a white issue. If you think about it, you look at the history of how this has unfolded. And so people have to be real careful not to get duped into this.
Immigration stopped being a black issue when white folks got here and decided they were going to create their own white country on black and brown land. Yeah. And ever since then, they took the issue over, and immigration has been their issue. And black folks and brown folks that are indigenous to these lands have been cast aside, have been put on reservations, have been forgotten. Oh, by the way, guess what? They still here. What about them?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real good point. I'm glad you added some texture to that conversation. We're talking with Mike Green. By the way, too, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 if you want to join in on our exchange with Mike Green. So, Mike Green, expectations. This is inauguration eve. Got a new president finally getting inaugurated, and I mean, I know you got all kinds of thoughts with respect to what he should be focused on. I'm real curious to get your thoughts on how he and also Vice President Harris, how they work with, I don't know, how they interface with a designated, to me, I mean, he's been acting like a designated terrorist organization that's called the Republican Party. How do you do that? I mean, how do you like work? I mean, how do we govern while interfacing with white extremists?
Well, we've been doing that for a long time. We've been doing that since the Civil War.
Right.
So this is not new. Now,
it's not, right.
No. Let's not take our eyes off the prize, okay?
Right,
because here's the thing: Black folks organized and defeated Richard Nixon in 1960, and brought in JFK. They brought in JFK to do three things: end segregation in schools, end discrimination in housing, and end discrimination in banking and access to capital and financing. Now, those three things, JFK failed in all three by the 1963, the centennial of the Emancipation Proclamation, and Black Americans rose up in what Dr. King wrote about. We just finished MLK Day. Dr. King wrote about this extensively, the Negro American Revolution. We rose up in nearly 1,000 cities with that message: in segregation in schools, in discrimination in housing, and in discrimination in banking. And JFK, by the end of 1963, was dead. White folks killed him because he took on the mantle, and he took on the voice of disaffected Black America, and white folks killed him for that. Now, that being said, you're talking about 1960 and to 1968, you had a number of people rise up, Black and white, the voices: Malcolm X, MLK, Bobby Kennedy, all of them dead by 1968. And guess who wins out in 1968? The same guy who lost in 1960, Richard Nixon. And Richard Nixon was elected in a landslide by who? White supremacists, the same folks that are right now supporting Trump, a white supremacist president. Oh, by the way, Trump, everybody thinks he's going out in disgrace. Trump entered this presidency in disgrace. He's going out actually on top. Now, how do I say that? Well, guess what? After 4 years of a daily deluge of delusional and dangerous despotism, this man increased his support among white Americans. He increased them by 11 million. He increased his majority of support among white men, 61%, and among white women, 55% increase. And he exposed the white Christian evangelical landscape as just another name for white supremacy. So we have all these euphemisms for white supremacy: authoritarianism, totalitarianism, fascism, evangelicalism, and republicanism, and Trumpism. All of those are euphemisms for white supremacy. We are still fighting the exact same people we were fighting back in the 1960s. We just lost our message and we've lost our focus. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if Biden and Kamala Harris do not understand what is needed to uplift Black America in segregation in schools, in discrimination in housing, in discrimination in banking and access to capital, if they don't understand those basic concepts, then where are we going? Where are they leading us?
Right. And what you're seeing right now, Mike, especially on the eve of inauguration, and you're seeing the priorities that Biden is saying, that his transition team is saying that they'll focus on executive orders, regulatory actions that they'll reverse from the previous administration. How's that looking right now?
How's that affecting the kids, the Black kids in the ghetto that are going to ghetto schools?
Yeah.
When all of our most vulnerable populations of black children and brown children are served by the worst quality schools in the richest nation in the world. Where are our top leaders? Where are their priorities on our most vulnerable, those children? That's our future, right?
Right.
In 20 years, we're going to flip this nation into a minority majority. Those kids that are in schools right now are going to be the majority of this nation. Are they going to produce the majority of jobs? Are they going to have high net worth, high wage incomes? Are they going to be participating and competing in a tech-based, globally competitive innovation economy? Or are they going to still be marginalized? They're still going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, no, that's,
who's talking about that?
Yeah, nobody. And in fact, I mean, we had Congressman Jim Clyburn. This is where I'm like, yeah, I am getting kind of worn out by Congressman Jim Clyburn. With only thing he talked about is, okay, let's make the Black national anthem the national anthem.
What?
That's his that's his contribution to the conversation.
Man, stop! What is wrong with us?
Yeah, that's his thing right now. That's kind of his high profile. That's his latest big statement, like where he's focused. Yeah, we need to take it. Right.
Do not be fooled by the okie doke, because see, I love my elders. I've been taught to respect my elders.
Same here, I do too. I do.
When James Clyburn came out and said to South Carolina black folks, you need to vote for this guy, Joe Biden, because he came to the fish fry. I said, wait a minute, what is Joe Biden standing for? Hey, Joe Biden doesn't have to stand for it.
It was now okay that.
You invite him to the fish fry, you vote for him. Oh, you got the wrong black man here.
Now, okay, I mean, now I thought that was a thoughtful, I mean, we diverge on this. I thought at that time that was a thoughtful strategic decision on the part of Clyburn, but I'm thinking, okay, well, he's made that thoughtful strategic decision, and so he's going to follow up with the kinds of key demands like you're making, right, that we're making on a program like this on a regular basis. He ain't done that yet. So, so it's like you're not hearing that from him. He's the kingmaker. He's the one that started that sparked all this. So you would think, okay, well, Jim Clyburn is the one who's going to say the exact same thing Mike Green is saying. Hey, let's wealth generation, housing segregation, also improve educational achievement. These are the pillar things, Joe, I need you to focus on, not I need you to designate the Black national anthem as the American. Like that's what I'm thinking he would do.
You killing me. Look, see, I am very patient with my astute brothers. You and I are from different generations. Right, I know this game, man.
Right. I know you do.
And you're a younger man. I know you give people a chance. You say, okay, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. I say, okay.
I do.
How you gonna stop?
Yeah.
Now what?
I was just hoping. We were talking to Mike Green, co-founder of the National Institute for Inclusive Competitiveness. You should check it out, niicusa.org. He's also at @MikeGreen2 on social media. He's highly engaged there, got a lot of great thoughts, great analysis. That's why we bring him on here. We discovered him for a reality check here, for the reality check on WURD audience. So it's always a pleasure to have him on. He's been joining us by Skype here on WURD TV. Great to have you on, Mike. Thanks again. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for the insights too earlier on. So it's giving me some thoughts about how we carry on that, because the history. That's one thing I always like about having you on, because you let us know, hey, listen, this has happened before, y'all. Just read the history books. It's all there. We've been through this exercise. This is like a repeat episode, and at first when you used to do that, I'm like, okay, where's he headed with that? And I'm like, that's where he's at. He's letting us know this is a rerun. So we should know by now how to respond to it, how to react. So I always appreciate that perspective and those thoughts. Thanks again, Mike. Be safe out there.
Charles. You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back on the other side, we are slated to talk with Justin Wallen. We're headed into a strategist segment coming up next here on WURD. Strategist segment with Justin Wallen of J. Wallen Research. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach with tips to help you stay well. We breathe every day and have been doing so since before we were born. But wait, let's think about this for a moment. Something as simple as breathing can enhance our health and well-being. When we breathe mindfully, we slow down, take deep breaths, and activate our parasympathetic system to relax our bodies. Mindful breathing goes like this. Number 1, find a comfortable place to sit still for a few minutes. Number 2, close your eyes and relax your hands on your thighs. Number 3, take a deep breath in and count to 3. Then exhale your breath and count to 3. Do this 5 times. We sometimes think mindful breathing has to be an intense experience, yet even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at WURDradio.com. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Is a longtime strategist, opinion research expert. You can find out more about him at jwallen.com, jwallen research, jwallen.com, at jwallen1, I believe, on, or is it at Justin Wallen 1, if I'm not mistaken, Justin. But Justin is also an occasional contributor here for our weekly strategist segment on Reality Check. It's always good to have him. He's out there on the West Coast out in California. So it's a bit more early. He's about 3 hours behind us, and we always appreciate him waking up early in the morning to join us here on the East Coast. Justin, how are you doing, sir? Happy New Year to you again.
Fantastic. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. So, yeah, just it's been quite a past couple of weeks, right? And we are on Inauguration Eve. Right now we're broadcasting to you live from the nation's capital, from Washington, D.C., just kind of watching developments on the ground in and around off Capitol Hill. So public opinion is very split right now as far as expectations of President Biden. And, it's you just have half of Americans, a little under half of Americans, about 49% of Americans are confident that he'll be able to do the right thing or be able to hit the ground running. So how does he manage those sorts of low public expectations at the moment? Because I find those expectations kind of low considering the administration that we're stepping out of.
Well, he's been handed a difficult plate. And the good news for him is when you start low, it's easier to go up, of course.
Right.
I think he's done well by focusing on 2 key issues and really staying focused on that. Mm-hmm. One being coronavirus and differentiating himself on the rollout from the administration, which has largely been decentralized, right? If you can boil it down to 2 different things, one is decentralization and one is centralization. I think Joe Biden's perspective is we're going to find some way, which implies a federal involvement, to get 100 million vaccines and 100 million people within 100 days. That sort of clarity, I think, is important. I think he's done absolutely the right thing. Mm-hmm. So his focus on unifying the country is critical, because right now he's being called not just by progressive components, but by components in the Republican Party, Lincoln Project, people like this, to be punitive and to punish. And that is a very, very difficult thing for him to navigate, because you cannot have unity while pursuing punishment. It doesn't mean that you have to accept what you feel is wrong, But that's not the path towards unity and moving forward. And tensions are so extraordinarily high. And when you look at some of the polling numbers, they are astonishing. 60% of Republicans feeling that the election was illegitimate, in spite of the fact that there is no data that suggests that it was.
Yeah.
Sorts of things are a testament to the value of words. Words are powerful. That's why we have free speech, right? Why we protect it so carefully. But it also means that when we incite things, when we talk about things in an inflamed way, no matter what your particular passion is, there could be consequences that you may not be happy with. You can't invite the kids from the block into your dining room, give them a baseball bat and a bunch of baseballs and say, play ball, and then get upset when they break the china. You have a responsibility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So on that question of punishment, I do think that all Biden needs to do here, all Biden, also Vice President Kamala Harris needs to do here, the new administration, just govern well. And then you can, you don't have to recruit or convert by punishment or by putting so much energy and focus on, oh, you know what, we need to get these Trump 2016, 2020 voters on our side to see things our way. Just govern well. I mean, we've had bad government for the past several years. So now let's bring in good governance and then just do it well, get the resources to where they're needed most, and everything will fall into place. And people will come onto your side because they're like, oh, you know what? He's actually managing things. He actually knows what he's doing. But on the other hand, there is that argument for accountability. There has to be some sort, that, and that's where I think that's a big crucial question right now that the country has to grapple with. Republicans, particularly Republicans on Capitol Hill, have to grapple with. Why have a constitution? Why argue for law and order if you're not going to exercise it, if you're not going to enforce that constitution? There were some clear violations of the constitution here by the president, potentially also by members of Congress. We haven't seen this level of seditiousness and insurrection since the Civil War and the aftermath of it. It's got to be enforced. I mean, it's got to show people that, hey, we got to, as a deterrence too, from even more egregious acts where the rule of law is violated. So I don't think it's so much about being punitive or being punished, but Republicans, especially Republican leaders, are going to have to understand here that, hey, listen, there has to be some accountability here. They want everybody else to be held accountable for things. And we have a constitution that is specifically designed for things that exactly had happened, for example, on January 6th.
Well, yeah, I mean, the law has to be followed if there are constitutional components that need to be addressed and respected, then they certainly require being addressed and respected. I mean, that is the rule of law in the country, and it applies to everyone. So if that's the case, if things were violated, then they need to address that. I think Biden's wise to be careful about jumping into that foray. Perspective matters. The current president left, and when he came into office, a lot of rhetoric about his election being illegitimate. I'm not taking a side on this one way or another, but that was the rhetoric at the time. There was an investigation about Russia. It turned out to be, there was no meaningful conclusion from that. People come to little things and say, well, there's a little thing here and there, but ultimately there was no. Yeah,
I agree. That kind of flatlined.
It did.
It was just like, yeah, all right. I mean, Mueller just, that's another conversation. But yeah, it flatlined. It just went flat.
So in banana republics, you have a new administration that's admitted in, and everyone sits around and tries to put the last administration in jail.
Yeah.
It's been going on for the last couple of administrations. Republicans felt Obama was the worst thing in the world. Oh my gosh, there's some sort of constitutional problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A small proportion of Republicans. Same thing happened when Trump came in, and because Trump was so rhetorically divisive, this fed right into the continuing flames, right? Biden has an opportunity now to do exactly what you said, to do the job and do it well, regardless of if you like his policies or don't like his policies, but to focus on the policies, focus on what matters to America, and continue down that path. And this doesn't mean be afraid of self-examination. Americans have an appetite for self-examination. What Americans saw last year, for example, in the black community, of a police officer murdering a man. Americans don't like that. They don't want that. There is room for self-examination and to fix this. But it requires a sober examination rather than inflaming passions that are already, in some cases, extremely rightfully inflamed. A leader's job is to focus people towards an end and get there. That's hard. That takes pulling people together of disparate opinions. It's a difficult task. I think he started well. He started quietly. I think that's good. I think he started in a sober and careful fashion, and I think all credit goes to him for that.
You know, so you're very optimistic on that self-examination point. I respect that. I don't know if I agree as much, but I do respect that. And you know what I think, Justin, too? I think that there is a difference here between how Biden pursues this. President Biden, because you absolutely made a good point at that last point, how President Biden pursues this, Vice President Harris, how they pursue this. You do have to, you're the president of all the United States, so you're representing all constituencies. And you can't care who they are. You can't do a red state, blue state calculus like the outgoing president always did, like even to the point where, you know, you guys had wildfires out there in California, and he made a calculus about federal aid based on, well, California didn't vote for me. I didn't get their electoral college votes. And it's like, you can't govern like that. You're the president of the whole United States. So you can't just prioritize one group over another. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So on one hand, you've got what Biden-Harris, what President Biden especially needs to do, the tone he needs to set. But then on the other hand, it's what does Congress do? What do Democrats do in a moment like this? I want to get your thoughts on as far as public expectations of how do Democrats and Republicans now work together, because they've got by a slim majority, Democrats are dominating the government, or at least the key branches of government. So how do they do that? How do we now see? So Biden knows what he has to do. I agree with you. I think, and I have been saying that, just govern, do what you got to do, but let Congress do its investigations, its hearings. Let your Justice Department, it has an obligation to carry out prosecutions. It's going to do that. So just let it do its work without you having to be even in the middle of it. And just, you know, when people ask you questions about it, hey, listen, that's DOJ. Ask them. I'm doing my thing right here. We got a pandemic, and I got to get the economy back on track. But I wonder about that, you know, as far as public expectations. And what do Republicans do, too, in a moment like this?
Republicans are in a crisis point. It's been said so often, and it's almost getting hackneyed. I feel that.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, they really are. I mean, they're at this, and they have two polar opposites right now that are vindictive. You know, they have folks who are extraordinarily loyal to the outgoing president, and they have this, I'll call them for lack of a better term, this wing of the Lincoln Project, which is political, you know, super PAC, very, very well funded, that has been from the beginning anti-everything Trump. So this polarization, which is extraordinarily vindictive, is going to it's going to exacerbate the already deep divide within the Republican Party. The question is whether the Republican Party has leaders that are able to bring it together. Mm-hmm. There have been leaders in the past who are able to do that. This also takes words. It takes words that have the power to unite behind somebody who's got a track record of uniting people. Mm-hmm. I don't see anyone who stands out as that person right now.
So you don't see anyone right now. So I was wondering about that.
No, I don't. I will see if someone rises to the fore, but I see nobody who has that ability. And I suspect the Republican Party is going to descend into internecine warfare over the course of the next 2 to 4 years, at least 2 years, and be tremendously ineffective. So that means it's a great opportunity procedurally for the Democratic contingent in the House and the Senate to take advantage of that. I think they can take advantage of that. And, you know, I say this with no joy on either side. I mean, the Republican Party is fundamentally ineffective because of this. And absent that ability to pull them together, they'll continue to be effective. And they'll essentially just look at what's best for them in their particular district and become more and more vocal. And they won't have that governing principle of let's move towards a unified goal, regardless of small differences. There isn't a voice like that.
What's that policy platform, do you think, Justin, as far as like the Republican Party? Like, what's their theme? What's their vision? I mean, is it like the same stuff, like cut taxes, free market, limit immigration? Or, I mean, is it something a lot more ambitious and a lot more visionary than that?
I think it's a good opportunity for the Republican Party to do that self-examination and look forward. Its economic approach has been fundamentally sound in many, many ways. It has courted a separation from immigrants in the United States. This has damaged it. All you have to look at is California with Prop 187, which, by the way, was passed with a significant proportion of the Latino vote. So it's not as if procedurally it didn't make some sense to even the people who supposedly it damaged. But the problem was it engendered this ongoing perception that immigrants are in some way bad for America, and they in some way take away from Americans, which is, I think, is poisonous to the Republican Party. Now, that said, there's a lot of Republicans who view that. So that would require a tremendous amount of fortitude to address that as a party. I don't know if they have that ability or not, but I mean, I do think that looking at the party and saying it is done because its policies or its perspectives don't make sense, I don't think that works on a whole. I think the Republican Party, in most ways, has very sound approaches that are a good, not a foil, but they're a good counterbalance to democratic policies, which are not they're not proven to be the best either. But there are some certain things about the Republican Party that I think are not they're not in the best interests of America, and they're counterproductive towards the political interests nationally of their party that they should take a good hard look at.
You know, this is a fascinating conversation about that future of the Republican Party, which it is still, in the grander scheme of things, is secondary to, you know, just the country, the state of the country right now. But people, I'm real curious. One, I know a lot of people are curious about it. Two, people do want to keep an eye on it because what's been happening inside or festering inside the Republican Party has had such a debilitating effect on the country, you know, particularly through Trumpism. And so, but, you know, I guess based on your assessment just now, Justin, you're expecting the party to split up. It's going to split up. That they're either, I don't know, there's going to be like a breakaway party. And who is that going to be? Is it going to be the Trumpists breaking away and creating their own thing? You know, especially if there's a situation where the 14th Amendment, Section 3 is activated and Trump can't run again. Or if certain people are expelled from Congress, or if they're also barred from running. I don't know. I mean, what could we see? Could we see the Trumpists forming their own party, or could we see the Lincoln Project folks, the so-called moderates, forming their own thing? Or maybe, or I don't know, is it someone like a Liz Cheney? Liz Cheney kind of stood out to me. She had the attitude of like, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm Dick Cheney's daughter. Like, so, like, yeah, let's have at it. Let's knuckle up. I mean, that's what I saw from Liz Cheney. And she's like, I'm going to take this party over.
I think she showed great leadership. I think that's the sort of thing that, I'm glad that you mentioned her name. I think she showed great leadership. That's the sort of thing that over time could help. Let me be clear. I don't see the party operationally splitting up. I just don't know. There's so many unknowns, but I don't see a unifying voice. That I don't see. And usually with that, you know, there may be a splinter or something like that. It would be ineffective if it were just Lincoln Project people, ineffective if it were just Trump people. It needs to have more mass than that to be truly effective. So I just don't know. I mean, absent that unifying voice, then it's the likelihood is the party just descends into this internecine warfare sort of squabbling that we'll see over the course of 2 years, maybe as long as 4 years. And you know, as a party and as policies, the party champions, it'll be put very, very far in back. So behind the eight ball. It's so difficult to foresee what's going to happen.
Okay, so what's the appetite for amongst Republicans, or at least, you know, your rank and file Republicans from grass tops to grassroots, for flushing the extremism out of it, for flushing the white nationalism out of it? I mean, what's the state of that conversation right now? You've got, like, because you still have a majority of Republicans don't think that the election is legitimate. And they're basing this off of lies or myths surrounding the legitimacy of black voters in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta. That's a problem. Are they going to is there an appetite to flush white nationalism, or at least dominant white nationalism, out of the Republican Party?
Yeah, one would certainly hope so. It's a small proportion of Republicans. Republicans, I've said this a lot, Republicans are not racist. They're just not. But there sure seems to be a lot of allowance allowance and accommodation of things that move us from a serious discussion.
But that's, you don't see that is racist, that kind of allowance and accommodation, just by allowing for that. Yeah.
It needs to go away.
Yeah.
And Republicans have to have the fortitude. Some have said it, but I mean, they have to have the fortitude every time they enter this conversation. It's kind of like political messaging or branding. They have to recognize, believe it, and say it repeatedly. They complain that when they say it, the networks don't pick it up. That's because they don't say it enough, right?
Yeah.
They don't say racism cannot be tolerated in the party. That's not who we're an inclusive party. If that is indeed what the party is, and that's what, I mean, I certainly thought that was the party when I first registered as a Republican 100,000 years ago. But to accommodate the fears of a small group of people that manifests itself in ways that are un-American. Racism is an American trait. We went to war. We lost hundreds of thousands of people to fight, to destroy that. This is a point of pride. And it actually is a point of pride that Republicans have deep ownership of.
Yeah.
Our rhetoric is moving away from that. And I agree with you, Charles. I think that this allowance and accommodation of people who are racist, it's hard to sit there and say that that's not racist in and of itself. It's not good.
Yeah. Justin Watt, Justin, I'll let you go. It's always great to have you on. He's our occasional contributor here for our strategist segment here on Reality Check WURD. Justin Wallen, everyone. Go to J Wallen Opinion Research at jwallen.com, and it's at Justin Wallen1 on social media, on Twitter, more specifically, if you'd like to engage him there, ask him questions, also see what he's up to. He's kind enough to join us from the West Coast out in California. Get a little bit of that perspective here on Reality Check. Justin, be safe out there. Thanks again, man, for your perspective. Always appreciate it.
Always.
All right. Excellent. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, on the other side, Latricia Adams, who is the founder, CEO, and president of Black Millennials for Flint. We're going to talk about that Flint water crisis and some of the latest developments. If you heard, former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder charged criminally for criminal negligence in the Flint water crisis, or the actions that led up to the Flint, what is now known as the Flint water crisis. So we'll talk about that here on Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Clark Roofing Company has over 30 years of quality roofing experience, providing exceptional customer service, honesty, and professionalism. Clark Roofing is a second-generation master roofer, installing top-quality roofing systems for commercial and residential properties across the tri-state area. For fast, dependable service, call 215-365-ROOF. That's 215-365-7663.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Just waiting on Latricia Adams, Black Millennials for Flint, supposed to be coming up on shortly to talk. That's going to be at the, that's at the noon hour. My fault. That's at the noon hour, but phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. She's going to be coming up at noon. So definitely tune in for that. You want to get an update on what's happening with Flint. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check, broadcasting to you live from the nation's capital, from Washington, D.C. It is very tense. Just the tension is very thick in the air. Also, while we're talking to you and while we're gearing up for Inauguration Eve, there are several different confirmation hearings which are being held in the Senate as we speak. So there are 5 confirmation hearings that are taking place as we speak. In fact, I was watching bits and pieces of the Senate confirmation hearing for the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, who would be the first black Secretary of Defense. He needs to get a waiver. Doesn't seem like that's going to be much of a problem anymore, but since he retired about 5 years ago from being a 4-star general in the U.S. Army, but that's taking place. Also, Rachel Levine, who is the Secretary of Health for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, is being nominated as Assistant Secretary of Health. So she'd become the first openly transgender official to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. That's what's expected there. Confirmation hearings held today for Avril Haines for the Director of National Intelligence, Alejandro Mayorkas as Homeland Security Secretary, Anthony Blinken as Secretary of State, Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary, and Lloyd Austin, as I was saying before, for Defense Secretary. That's continuing. That hearing is continuing for Lloyd Austin. So a lot of people aren't realizing that, but Senate confirmation hearings are taking place for very significant, very key posts in the Biden administration. They wanted, this is all about Biden needing, not wanting to, but needing to hit the ground running. Let me go to Derek out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Derek?
Love, peace, blessing, and prosperity, Charles.
Peace. All right. How are you doing, sir?
I'm maintaining that, Charles. Thank you for allowing me to have a reality check.
All right.
And my reality check, Charles, is it realistic for me? Because in my heart, mind, and spirit, I feel that this is an opportunity for a second Reconstruction period. Is that realistic?
I think that is a realistic goal. I think we should look at it as that. I really do. Yeah.
And Charles, so with all the energy of me, I'm trying to reach in my family and reach out in my community just to get people to be familiar with that detail. After the Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation, we entered into what was called by the government a Reconstruction era. And I'm so proud of us right now that we've been kicked about and knocked about, bamboozled and hoodwinked, but we put it together, beginning in South Carolina. Well, not beginning in South Carolina, but we know the congressman down there really turned things around for the country. And so I hold Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I really hold them up high, Charles, at this moment because our ancestors have died to so that we didn't need this moment. But we ourselves, after our ancestors, we maintain their stability and their determination to make something out of ourselves and this country at the same time. I'm proud of that.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, that's what, for example, we just yesterday, many of us were celebrating, that national, really all weekend,
Absolutely.
Celebrating Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. The reason we got the right to vote, the Voting Rights Act was created as a result of a direct result of Dr. King's efforts. Dr. King wanted a Voting Rights Act, he got a Voting Rights Act. Dr. King wanted a Civil Rights Act, he got a Civil Rights Act. So it's very, and I know there's some folks out there who gave us a hard time, last year. I was like, well, I don't want to vote. My vote ain't worth nothing. But I'm sure that they were celebrating Dr. King over the weekend. You know, I'm sure they were. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, some of folks give me a hard time. Like, we don't need to be doing this. Why? You know, I don't know about Joe Biden. You know, I'm not. I'm like, y'all, this is like that big moment. Like, we gotta get it together here, right? And then look what happened. Look what happened. Philly was on the global map. I mean, you know what I was doing, man? I've done already more than my share of interviews on international outlets, especially in England, who just wanted to ask, like, what did y'all do in Philly? These people all over the world was watching Philly after that election.
Yeah,
And Philly in particular, Black Philly in particular, is like, what were Black folks drinking in Philly? Like, you know, tell us about it, Charles. Tell it. You know, I was like the British dude. British is like, tell us about it, Charles. Tell us about that Black vote in Philly there. It's wild.
What is in that water? See, Charles, and this is what I would like to build up on, because we got a momentum, man.
Yeah, we do have momentum.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got that momentum. So, you know, those pep talks are in order. But, you know, let's make sure that there's clarity there, that there's crystallization on exactly what we want, like on what that agenda is. Like, I like how Mike frames it, for example, you know, things we need to end. But things we need to, and out of ending those things like segregation, inequality, low academic achievement, like the illiteracy crisis we're dealing with, we end those things so we then create those things to get us on a better path. So that's my basic point. Why, and I'm glad I asked Mike and I had him on. It's like paraphrasing the Jay-Z song, we got 99 problems, but like, sorry y'all, immigration ain't one of them. That's white folks' problems. So if you want to make their problems your problems, have at it. But you can't reasonably be like caping for their problems, but then claim that you caping for our problems, which is really where we need to be. We need to be focused on that. We got some really big serious problems here. Biden administration, President Biden, Vice President Harris, by no means perfect, but it's as close to what we can get so we can work towards we can start carving out a better path. That's why we voted. That's why we finally got that moment resolved with that election. And there's a lot of work to do. So, and I appreciate the way Derek is framing it. Like, yeah, this is the momentum. So this is the wave. Like, we got to catch that wave and we got to stay on that wave. You ever watch like footage of surfers and, you got to, it's hard. Surfing is hard. Like, I've done it, and it's, you got to stay. You got to like stay on that wave. It requires a lot of balance. It's one of the hardest workouts ever. Standing up and trying to maintain balance on a surfboard while a force of nature is carrying you and floating you for a distance. It's a heavy workout. So this is the workout. This is that workout. Like, this is not, it's not easy stuff. No one said it was going to be easy. And the first phase of that was essentially getting that vote out, getting it mobilized, making that win, not just nationally, not just in places like Pennsylvania. We got it done. Look who did it. Black folks in Atlanta. Look at what black women doing. Black women got us together. Black women tried to save the world in 2016. All right, that didn't work. So then they got organized, created organizations like Black Votes Matter down in the South, got people mobilized, got people activated. We got black folks in key states, and we made the Electoral College into an HBCU. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia. We're the reason that Joe Biden, the Democrats, won those states and basically won the Electoral College overwhelmingly. So now we have to be very crystal clear and very sharp. We can't get distracted and get thrown off by talking points from other interests or from other corners or from people who have never been in our best interest. We need to think about our best interests and think about specifically those top 3 to 5 things that we want. What kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to live in like what's our 5-year business plan? No, seriously, what is our I guess we can say, what is our 4-year business plan? Because we're thinking about 4 years of a presidency, of an administration. And then what's the outlook for our children? So what's that 10, 15-year business plan? What's the outlook for the grandchildren? What's that 20, 30, 40? How do we want, what sort of life do we want? And so that's, and it's not like how I was saying with, you know, folks like, you know, certain, like Jim Clyburn, you know, I'm thinking he was going to lay that out. It's not about, it can't be symbolic stuff. It's got to be actual things, actual tangible things that we want. It can't be just symbolic things or making points just to simply make points. It can't be gestures. It can't be just, oh, you know, we're going to take statues now. Like in Georgia, for example, the Georgia legislature, Georgia state legislature is run by Republicans. They're already introducing or proposing legislation to severely curtail voting rights because they're mad now. They're mad that black people won the president, you know, flipped Georgia from red to blue in the presidential election, and then had the audacity to flip 2 Senate seats in a runoff. Do you know what the history of a runoff is in the state of Georgia? Literally, the legislator back in, I think it was 1970 when they created the runoff system in Georgia, and he admitted it. He's like, I'm creating this to dilute the black vote in Georgia. I'm worried that the black vote in Georgia will have too much power. I'm going to create a runoff system. And black folks completely upended that 2 weeks ago. In a runoff, y'all, black voters did that. So now what do Republicans do? What do white Republicans, white conservatives, evangelicals in Georgia do? Oh, they're already submitting proposals to severely curtail voting rights. Everything from mail ballot boxes to absentee ballots. That's their big focus. Like, we can't have that happening again. And then in the meantime, now they're saying, along with Governor Brian Kemp, oh yeah, we want to replace the statue of the Vice President of the Confederacy, which is in the Georgia State Capitol, with the statue of John Lewis. And of course, you know, the black Georgia State legislators, they're, oh yes, we need to do that. It's like, no. You are not going to sit here and tell me while you're busily dismantling voting rights, something that John Lewis got beat down for, you are going to busily dismantle voting rights and in the same breath talk about you want a statue of John Lewis. No, if I were black state legislators, and we need to get them on there from Georgia, like, why in the hell would you even consider anything like, no, stand your ground on that. No, we'll bring a statue of John Lewis in here when y'all rip up or shred up those proposals for those anti-voting rights proposals. Then we'll have a conversation about John Lewis. Don't get duped into other people's conversations, y'all. That's my point. Don't get duped into other people's conversations. Don't get duped by rhetorical and by rhetorical bling, right? By symbolism, and get enchanted by shiny objects and things and flowery speeches. Don't get caught up in that. Like, know exactly what the agenda is and what we need to get done. All right, let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll have Latricia Adams of Black Millennials for Flint. She's coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
The people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, kind of work people more than 8 hours without overtime, kind of work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Announcing the Black Words Book Club, WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The next book for February is Long Time Coming, Reckoning with Race in America by Michael Eric Dyson, a New York Times bestseller that traces the roots of racism from slavery and Jim Crow to police police brutality. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Dafina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, February 9th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Dafina. Dafina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. We were just waiting on Latricia. We should have her momentarily. We were trying to raise her by Skype and couldn't do that. So just a slight technical glitch there. We're going to try to raise her by phone. Latricia Adams, president of Black Millennials for Flint. Go to blackmillennials4flint.org for more information on what they're doing, what they're up to, who they are, and why the focus on Flint. Flint's still a focus of many of outrage, and Flint, you know, that situation there as far as that tainted, polluted, infected water. You know, people still worried about the long-term consequences of that destructive, you know, that dangerous water, unhealthy water in Flint. And so now there's been criminal charges that have been filed against the state health director for the former state health director for Michigan, and also Governor Rick Snyder, former Michigan governor, Republican Governor Rick Snyder. Criminal charges had been filed. It was a big deal that happened last week. Obviously, we've been dealing with this issue of events in D.C., and so it hasn't been as much focus on that about what's happening in Flint, but it did happen, and so it's rather significant. Not just significant for Flint either, for the state of Michigan, but significant in terms of that overall conversation on environmental justice. So definitely looking forward to having her on. So that's going to be an EcoWord conversation. Let's go ahead and open up the phone lines in the meantime while we try to raise her. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here, on Reality Check. Kenneth Simmons here. Number one thing is to make Lift Every Voice and sing a national anthem. That should be our number one priority. Win the future. No, that shouldn't be our number one priority. Sorry. I love this song though, and yeah, grew up with it, and was basically trained to remember it. So especially when those moments arise. But no, that's not our number one priority. But I appreciate. We definitely need to win the future though, Kenneth. I appreciate you on that. Michelle Tulik Neal, great analogy with Wave. I appreciate that, Michelle. Thanks for listening in. Linda Shields saying, this is on Facebook Live, by the way, in our WURD TV session on Facebook Live. Linda Shields, good morning, WURD fam. Good afternoon now to you, Lynn. She's saying here to myself, based on a conversation Mike Greenan and myself were having earlier, Trump is not going out on top. He's left a big mess. The only thing he did was bring out more prejudice and white supremacists. He was impeached 2 times, and everybody knew for years he was womanizing, white supremacist, narcissist, evil bum. He was allowed to get away with a lot of law breaking and breaking the Constitution. If that's leaving on top, then so be it. It is the lawmakers' fault, the Republicans who are right along with him, and then we Democrats for passively letting him get away with it. Biden is an older man. He needs to get in there, do what needs to be done immediately, and let Nancy get the guilty lawmakers prosecuted. Now, I think what Mike was saying about Trump's going out on top, just turn in terms of politically, in terms of solidifying his base, because you still have, he's still got, for the most part, a whole political party, or one of the top 2 major political parties still behind him. So, and it remains to be seen how long that will last, or whether or not they'll go the distance with them. So I think that's what Mike was saying. But no, I appreciate. I think, Lynn, you're spot on in that. Cynthia Logan, Mike Green's insights and perspectives are on point. When he spoke about the assassinations in the 60s, culminating with the election of Nixon, it woke me up. I knew what he was going to say next, yet I had not connected the dots. There is value in remembering, recognizing, and understanding the past. You are absolutely right, Cynthia. It is, and that's why. So I always like that historical resuscitation that takes place. That Mike always does. I think it's always important. Remember Reconstruction. Like we need to refresh on that. The topic of Reconstruction. There's a lot of similarities between what we're going through now and what's already happened. And so we've been through these episodes before. So the playbook's there in terms of how we respond. So it's always like refreshing to have Mike or others on like him to remind us of that. We do have Latricia Adams on with us by phone. She's joining us now. She's the founder, CEO, and president of Black Millennials for Flint. Go to blackmillennialsforflint.org for more information. Latricia, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
All right, good. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So we tried to get you by Skype earlier, but that's okay. We got you by phone, and you sound loud and clear. So tell us about Black Millennials for Flint. Specifically, what is that organization? Why did you establish it?
Yeah, so Black Millennials for Flint is actually the first and only environmental justice and civil rights organization founded by Black and Latinx millennials. We were actually founded in the D.C. area, of course, in response to the Flint water crisis. And essentially, especially at the brink or the dawn of the Flint water crisis, we reacted in a way that a lot of organizations didn't. And what I mean by that is for consistency purposes. And we noticed very early on that environmental justice issues, lead and the like, is not just pervasive in Flint, Michigan, but in Black and brown cities, counties across the United States. And so while we initially focused on Flint, we kind of expanded our work to be more inclusive of other Black and brown cities like Baltimore, Memphis, Tennessee. Also, D.C. has their share of environmental justice issues as well, and really capturing a national platform to raise awareness around the eradication of lead in Black and brown communities, but then also stepping into the role of political advocacy as well, holding our government agencies and elected officials accountable to never have another Flint, Michigan to occur again in our country. So.
Yeah. And speaking of that accountability right now, I want to talk more about that too, about, because we were just having a conversation earlier about how, like, issues like climate crisis, for example, that is very much a Black issue. And I think it's a top 3, top 5 Black issue, honestly. When we think about issues like climate crisis, pollution, or environmental justice, or, anything environmental is a top priority for us, whether it's dealing with Flint or it's dealing with issues you're dealing with in Washington, D.C., or you're dealing with issues in Philly. It's that issue of the spaces we live in and how contaminated a lot of those spaces are, how we're targeted in situations like that. I want about that accountability now. What's happened recently with the criminal charges filed against former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, the Michigan State Health Director, and other Snyder's senior advisor. How significant is this? We haven't had a whole lot of conversation about it. Obviously, people have been watching what's been happening in Washington, D.C., but this is really significant, right? I mean, this is a shockwave throughout not just that conversation, but the way we respond to and advocate around these sorts of crises.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that you framed it that way, because this particular case will, be referenced for years and years to come as it relates to suits filed for environmental justice purposes. So with these charges, which are misdemeanors, I want to reiterate that they are misdemeanors, is very performative. It's not, in my opinion, I don't believe that it was sought out, the charges were sought out to actually establish or seek justice. I think that it being adjacent to the current Flint water crisis settlement, which is inherently racist within itself, I think that it was more so, well, we have to do something, right? Like, we have to somewhat save face, and, so we can finally be done with it. I think that the people who were involved, so ranging from the attorneys to city government, are exasperated from working, at this point, 6 going on 7 years. It'll be 7 years in April of this year. But there's not a deadline on seeking justice, right? Just like there was $100 a day that this Republican-led state wanted to put on Black and brown lives in Flint, Michigan, whatever, by any means necessary, there should still be advocacy around justice. And issuing charges with misdemeanors for someone that literally has caused not just irreversible damage, for generations to come, but lives have been lost due to this one decision, right, that was not inclusive of the people of Flint, the leadership in Flint, I would be remiss not to talk about how corrupt and dysfunctional placing emergency managers in predominantly black cities, not just like Flint, but also like Detroit, is so detrimental to the political infrastructure of the city of Flint.
No, it's and how's that situation in Flint right now? Because I think a lot of people have lost, for obvious reasons, have lost a lot of focus on Flint and what's transpiring there. So I guess one big question is, what's the state of it right now? Have things have certain issues, have things been cleaned up? Have problems been resolved as they should be? Or do we still have persistent problems there and people still getting sick?
Yeah, so right now there is roughly about 15% of the pipes that still need to be replaced. So the majority, has been replaced. But here is the caveat. So when the Flint water crisis hit, the water was so corrosive, it wasn't just the lead service pipelines that were impacted. So we're talking about from a domestic perspective, so indoor plumbing, fixtures, appliances. There has been no reimbursement or compensation to residents of Flint that were impacted that way. Additionally, the biggest heartbreaking aspect of all of this is the complete absence of trust of the water. You can tell folks in Flint, over and over again, like the water is safe, but, these same people said that the water was safe, in 2014, and here we are. It was indeed not safe. There is, just a lot of contentious energy, and rightfully so, between Flint residents and just government in general. I think what has been absent from not even just a conversation, but from a working and community engagement perspective is restorative justice. A place of healing has not been established. It's kind of being looked over. And with that, comes the impact on mental health. So now we're in a pandemic, still trying to find your way on the other side of the Flint water crisis. It takes a toll on our brothers and sisters in Flint. And, you ask, like, are there still issues? Absolutely. I don't think that, in our lifetime, these issues, will kind of subside because we don't even know what the impact of the children, especially, is going to be like 20 years from now.
Yeah. Are you hopeful? We got this new administration coming in, and so pretty much the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, which would be that federal agency to respond to a crisis like this in Flint, has been, for the most part, non-existent. It's been a federal agency in name only, but with the new administration, they of course promised to revive it, to retool it. Are you confident that with the new administration coming in, that these continuing persistent issues plaguing Flint can be resolved, can be responded to or addressed better?
So from a national perspective, I guess I am somewhat optimistic about there being heightened awareness surrounding environmental justice issues. I think with the Biden-Harris administration, for the first time we even started to hear, on the campaign trail, the phrase environmental justice, which in many ways is a step forward. However, what really needs to happen is a lot of the quote-unquote guidance from EPA needs to be law, right? So right now there are too many things that involve the environmental maintenance, if you will, from like from water quality to infrastructure, you know, that gives states, cities, and municipalities options. These things shouldn't be an option. It should be mandatory, you know, because now you're talking about money. And your less progressive state, you know, that's not a priority. And if they still have a way to opt out, they will, you know. So I definitely, you know, I guess I appreciate environmental justice being included in the plan, but, you know, seeing is believing. So I'm kind of just going to sit on it, you know, and see if there will actually be action. So don't just give us lip service. Like, we really need to see some action on the ground in these especially in Black and brown cities.
We don't need optional or multiple choice action on environmental justice. We need mandatory action and regulation on environmental justice. No, you're absolutely right. So it can't be optional anymore. We've been talking with Latricia Adams. She is the founder, CEO, president of Black Millennials for Flint. Go to blackmillennialsforflint.org for more information on them. See how you can help as well. At BM4Flint on social media, on Twitter more specifically, you'll see them engaged. She's been joining us here. We'll probably have, we'd like to have you back on, Latricia, at some point to keep talking about these issues with respect, especially to environmental justice, the environment. She's been joining us here for our onWURD segment. Latricia, thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll get you by Skype next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation.
Excellent, excellent. No, we appreciate you. Thanks for the work, too. Keep at it. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we are slated to talk with Nicolette Lewis-Saint. She will be joining us today. She couldn't join us yesterday, so we got her back. We had to reschedule her for today, here this Tuesday edition of Reality Check. She's going to be joining us next. We talk about the pandemic. We have this new variant, this new mutation that everyone's been talking about, much more contagious, highly contagious mutation of coronavirus is out there. So we had to worry about that. Well, how do we prepare for that? How do we navigate around that? Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint of Healthcare Ready coming on next to answer those questions. Phone lines are open in case you have a question for her, 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Take a break, and we'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? I know you know the word, no, not the station, but this word, J-O-B, that is. And our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
Okay, Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint is Executive Director of Healthcare Ready. She joins us frequently here on Reality Check to talk about all things pandemic and emergency preparedness. Go to healthcareready.org for more information there, see what they're up to, how you can connect with them. They may have resources there that might be of use to you, healthcareready.org. Dr. Lewis-Saint joining us by Skype. She's on WURD TV if you'd like to watch there, or if you are watching there right now, facebook.com/4WURD, youtube.com/onWURD. Dr. Lewis-Saint, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. I'm glad we got you. We couldn't get you yesterday, but I'm glad we got you today. How are you doing?
Glad to be with you. Sorry I had to move things, but I'm doing all right. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. No worries at all. Thank you. We're hanging in there, right? So, you know, we had talked a little bit about this this variant, this mutation of coronavirus and how it's been spreading. How bad is it getting since last time we talked? Because now I'm hearing a lot more chatter about it, a lot more worries and concerns. I want to get your thoughts on that first.
Sure. There are a couple of variants, so we should start there. They are scaring people in part because it's another unknown on top of the unknown associated with a novel strain of a virus. What we're seeing so far is that the disease progression is not significantly different from the SARS-CoV-2 strain that we've been dealing with. But there are concerns about what this means for treatments, how efficacious the current treatments are against these novel strains. So far, things are looking okay, but still a lot to consider as it relates to the matching of the vaccines and the treatments against these strains. But so far, studies are still ongoing, but we still have confidence that the current vaccines that are being rolled out and the therapeutics are able to combat these strains.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a big question for a lot of people that, we're talking about these new strains here, can the vaccines handle it? Especially when we're having issues right now with the rollout of the vaccine. We'll get to that in a few moments, but right now, what are you hearing from hospitals and providers as we're still hitting record rates? I don't think people realize how grave the situation is here as far as the strain on hospitals and healthcare providers. I think a part of this, and I was having this conversation with someone else earlier about, I think part of it is too, I think if people are not seeing an overflow of gurneys and bodies outside the hospitals, they're not going to get how severe this is, and they're going to continue to crowd up and still go over to each other's houses and go to places that they shouldn't go to, or unmask. And so, I mean, how severe is that? What are you hearing from hospitals and healthcare providers?
It's as severe as I would say every time we've talked about this in the last month. It's only getting worse. Your point about what it takes for people to recognize how difficult this is and where healthcare is very interesting to me, because that image of, dead bodies in freezers and gurneys all over the place, we're there, but also, there's a dignified way to deliver healthcare, which has been very much top of mind, especially as it relates to healthcare delivery for people of color. If we're doing things in a way that upholds dignity, we really shouldn't see those faces on those gurneys, right? So how do we explain to people that the healthcare situation is particularly dire while still upholding the dignity of those that are seeking care or are in the middle of this healthcare system? Right. And I'd love anyone's thoughts on that, but it's pretty severe. Hospital capacity, healthcare system capacity, ICU capacity is all but tapped right now in many states. California has already shifted to what we call crisis standards of care. So it's very severe, and they're very concerned about the ability to consistently deliver care, not just for COVID patients, but to anyone who needs it.
Yeah. Are we seeing any trends or any changes in how hospitals and healthcare providers respond to other chronic diseases or other ailments, other emergencies?
Sure. So we've been seeing over the last 6 months or so, CDC has a morbidity and mortality weekly report that they put out called MMWR report. Right. The decline in strokes and heart attacks has been fairly consistent for the last 6 months or so. Okay. And what we know is that people are not having less heart attacks or less strokes. They're just not seeking care for those. Yeah. Right. So, when you think about it, we've had data for 6 months saying that this is important and that we're continuing to see these rates, decline, which means that people are accessing the healthcare system less. But that's also where crisis standards of care come in. When healthcare providers have to call in crisis standards of care, what they're trying to figure out is how to deliver the best possible care under the worst possible circumstances. And so when we say we're invoking crisis standards, that's what that means, that we are in that worst case scenario and are trying to do the best for the most in that non-ideal situation.
Yeah. That and it is a non-ideal situation. Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint is Executive Director of Healthcare Ready. Go to healthcareready.org for more information. there, and also for more resources. She's at Dr. N. Lewis Saint on social media. And when we say about the variant, going back to the variant, Doctor, when we talk about it being more contagious, like 30 to 70% more contagious, at least that's all the reports and the studies that I'm saying. What does that mean exactly? Like, how should people translate that or unpack that? Does it mean like it's easy? Like, is it just as simple that it's easier to catch, or does that mean, oh, this is like even more vicious than the like original coronavirus COVID-19 that we're dealing with? Like it can get like inside your fingernails and can do, you know, like people are coming, that kind of conversation is out there. People are like, well, what do you mean like it's more contagious?
Yeah. So there's contagion and then there's disease progression. I'm trying not to use too many of my favorite nerdy science terms.
No, we like to get nerdy here. So
I know, but you know,
just like to, you know, we guide people through it as we get nerdy.
Yeah. But, you know, ideally, you know, you're on a whiteboard and you can draw pictures and show arrows of things going into other things. And
we're going to get you with a whiteboard next time. We're gonna get
let
a whiteboard.
Me tell you, that is the dream. That is the dream.
Right.
So, you know, there's how easy something is to catch, and then there is how the disease progresses once you catch it. And what we're talking about is the front end of that. How easy is it to catch? And contagion can basically mean that if you are not taking the appropriate measures to not be in a position to catch the disease, to have it transmitted to you, if you're not washing your hands, if you're not wearing a mask, if you're not socially distancing, the likelihood that you will catch it is greater. Have you talked about the Swiss cheese model on the show?
No, I don't think I have. I don't think we have.
One of the hallmarks of public health and epidemiology is this idea of Swiss cheese. And if you think about Swiss cheese with all of the holes that are in the cheese and you line up Swiss cheese, the idea is that all of these preventative measures, mask wearing, hand washing, social distancing, on their own are not enough to just protect you from transmission. But when you think about Swiss cheese and how you line it up, each one of those is basically a piece of Swiss cheese. So if the virus is trying to pass through, it may get through one hole, but it's probably not going to get through the second hole.
Okay.
And if it gets through the second hole, it's probably not going to get to the third hole. So it's this cumulative effect of being able to say that these actions are building on one another to make sure that even if one of them failed you at a time, if you had a hole in your mask, if you neglected to sanitize your hands, if you were a little too close to someone, that the system that you put in place to protect yourself as a whole will work together. That's a Swiss cheese model. And I bring that up to say that's where contagion and thinking about increased contagion is really important. So when you have something that's more contagious, you have less room for error as it relates to how to make sure that you're not getting infected. So that does mean that less room for error means you've got to wash your hands, you've got to wear the mask, you've got to socially distance. You can't take the risk of not doing one of those things.
Yeah, that's the thing. And so, you know, talk about like the mask, right? So because I've been hearing some conversation on that like, because a lot of people out there are reliant on cloth masks. And cloth masks were just supposed to be sort of a temporary measure until until the government and the economy scaled up to be able to make those like K95 masks. Or I think they call it out in Europe the FP22s or something like that. You know, those high-end like surgical scale masks.
Right.
Like what kind of mask should we be wearing? Because now I'm seeing like a lot of experts saying, hey, you know what, the cloth mask, that was supposed to be just like a stopgap thing. Like you shouldn't be doing that forever. So like what should we be wearing?
Yeah, so we've got a couple different, and the other thing is not all cloth masks are created equally.
Okay.
Because some cloth masks you'll find do have a filter in them. And they may have a replaceable filter, and that filter is actually additional barrier protection.
Yeah, I've got that.
You'll have a surgical mask, and then you have N95 masks or KN95 masks, or the other types of masks that both have a smaller pore size so that less things can get through, but they also have a charge repellent so that it makes it impossible for the virus to penetrate. There are also thinner masks that I've seen coming out quite a bit of like the neoprene fabric and thinner fabrics that have larger pore sizes, but people seem to find that those are more comfortable, so they may wear them, but they may be more permissive because the pore size, that hole that's in the fabric that allows things to get through, could be bigger. So what people should be doing, that's always difficult. I myself often wear a cloth mask that has a filter in it. But if I know that I'm going, for example, to the grocery store and it may be difficult to control how close I am to someone, I will myself wear a surgical mask and a cloth mask with that filter to increase barrier protection. I've also seen a lot of people ask the question about how tightly the mask should fit. It doesn't matter how tight the pore sizes are on the mask if you have holes on the side of your face or in the top of your nose or in your chin. So if it is not snugly around your face, it doesn't matter because you've created a big old hole.
Right.
Through, right?
Yeah, I see people like either they have the nose showing or it's like everything's flapping around, and I'm like, come on, y'all. Like, I get annoyed with that too.
I'll see people like move it down below their nose, and it's like that's not the point. So it doesn't matter if you have on a surgical mask because you just took your dirty hand and moved it below your nose outside. What are we doing here? So there are moments like that that are very frustrating for someone like me. But that's why it makes it difficult to just say, here's what you should do, because part of this is, if you make sure that there's sufficient barrier protection, it also has to be snug around your face, and you should be washing your hands before you remove your mask.
Got it. Hold on one second. Dr. Lewis Saint, I wanted to bring up Reverend Williams, had a quick question here on Reality Check while we're talking with Dr. Lewis Saint. Reverend Williams?
Doc, thank you, Mr. Ellison and Doc. I think it would be Russian roulette. I'm a minister, pastor, to open church again or go to concerts around people. After listening to you, I'm convinced it's going to be a long haul not to open up. So what is your opinion on that?
I agree. I think it is important for us to remember that the church is a lot more than the building.
Yeah, amen.
I think it's important for us to remember, though, that as people who rely on the church, that we need to make sure that we are investing in the church so that that building is there when we need it.
Sure.
But I do think that we are not at the point, for many reasons, where we can safely congregate. A lot of churches are not large enough to do the type of social distancing of their congregations in the space. A big part of our praise and worship involves singing, and it is very difficult to sing with a mask on.
Right.
So those types of considerations, a lot of our church buildings are older, and it will be both difficult and expensive to think about the process of sanitizing and disinfecting at the frequency that we would need. And then how we protect our elders and those with chronic conditions is of the utmost importance to me. And when you're thinking about trying to make sure that the building is sanitized and disinfected routinely so that those individuals who may have chronic conditions, may be over the age of 65 or 75, can easily freely worship, I think it's too dangerous.
I want to thank you for that information, because in my case, we have a majority of our congregation is older adults, so I'm not going to try to second guess any of this stuff and hold off until someone says it's safe to go back in.
Absolutely. Now, I remind people to still tithe. That's important.
It's very, very important.
The building still needs to be there when we need it.
That's right.
Our religious leaders need our support. But I think where we are right now and what it takes to be able to get a building safely opened and protecting our elders that are going to be going into the church, I don't think we're ready for it yet.
Yeah. Let me go to real quick to Woody out of Winfield. Had a question for you too, real quick. Dr. Lewis Saint here. Thank you for that, Reverend Williams too. We need to talk more. We will talk later on about churches, houses of worship, and how they adapt in this climate. That's a real good conversation to have. Maybe we dedicate a whole conversation to that. Nicolette. Woody, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, Charles. I just wanted to say to the doctor, I appreciate you, doctor, coming on. and I don't want to forget that Dr. Marshall Mitchell, who helped out a lot with this whole thing and getting people, the black doctors together. He was one of the pastors that I remember doing that. He was a very young man when I was doing his hair, but now he's grown up and he's doing great things. So if you see him, say hello to him for me. My question to you was one simple one. In laboratories, as it relates to the vaccines, when they create these vaccines and they're doing studies, most of the studies, from what I understand, are done on white mice. Is there a reason for that? My personal opinion is because there's more white people in America than there are blacks. We only make up 12 to 15%. So with most of the medicines that they put out, they're not designed directly for people of darker hue. Is that correct?
Sure. So white mice, there's a very interesting story as to why most lab mice are white. And it actually connects to people like me who many moons ago used to be lab scientists working with mice. We don't want to touch a gray or a brown mouse because we associate those with field mice. And so the mice themselves have been altered so that lab mice tend to be white fur. They're white fur mammals. The color of the mouse has nothing to do with its genetic similarity to humans. So those things are completely separate. It's just, if you're somebody like me that's squirmish around rodents, you don't want to touch something that looks like it's a field mouse, right? I still don't. I had a hard time with that when I was in the lab, and to this day I still do. So the color of the mouse actually does not connect to how similarly it will behave, a product would behave in a human. Now, you do raise an interesting point that I know Charlton and I have talked about on the show a few times, and I know we continue to say we want to find more time to talk about, which is how we test products to know how they behave in humans and how we understand racial, genetic, and other differences in the trials process. So a lot of these products these vaccines have actually been tested in between 12 and 20% Black people specifically, around 15, I think as high as 30% Hispanics. The number of Asian people of Asian descent in the trials has varied more. So with these products in particular, with these vaccines and therapeutics, there's been a really concerted effort to increase the trial participation to understand how these products are performing in people of color, in people of African descent, and people of Asian descent. So it is important to understand that, and it's always very easy to search for this information yourself and to learn, because all of the papers will show you what those numbers were. But part of the reason it was so important to do that at this point is because we are looking at the performance of a vaccine that's going to be administered widely, and going to be focused on with people of color, because we are facing some of the harshest medical impacts from COVID. We are dying at higher rates. We are dealing with long-term illness from COVID at higher rates. So it's going to be important to get us vaccinated. So the trials have considered that and have made sure that they are looking at a representation of our population, as you said, 12%, 12 to 13% in America. Yeah. And so that's been reflected in the trials.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Woody. Thanks for that response too, Nicolette. We got to let you go. Unfortunately, this is good. And let's get back to that. I am promising you, and please pivot me back to that in the next couple of weeks when we have you back on, where we talk about that. We talk about that concerted effort. I remember you were talking about different boards, like review boards at academic and government institutions. That maybe that's a conversation. How do we start? I don't want to say infiltrating, but how do we start? I mean, it is our public right to participate on those boards, and very, very, very few people know about this. And so now we're in a new age here, and so let's look at how we do that. That's just one of the ways how do we mobilize around that? I mentioned that to someone over at Council of State Governments too. So how do we kind of do some more intentional policy making around that? So stay tuned on that. But let's talk about that in a couple of weeks. Dr. Nicolette Lewis-Saint is Executive Director at Healthcare Ready. Go to healthcareready.org for more information at Dr. N. Lewis-Saint. Nicolette, always a pleasure having you on. It's good to see you, and please be safe out there.
You too. Be safe.
All right. Take care. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, Phone lines are open as we wrap up this Tuesday inauguration eve edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, we're back at it. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215. I like that beat. I like that last beat right just now. So that was a nice little jam. Felt a little carnival like here on Reality Check just for like 30 seconds. I missed that. I miss it's going to be a long time before we get back to doing anything like that, like a good solid carnival. I'm just can't wait till hopefully 2022. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Maybe not even 2023. I know I have some friends of ours that like, when we going back to Trinidad Carnival? I was like, all right, looking like 2022, 2023, boss. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Queen out of West Philly, calling in for Reality Check. Queen?
Brother Charles.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Doesn't sound like Queen. It sounds like someone else. Who's this? Who that? Who there? Can you hear me?
This is Joseph from Massachusetts. Could you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Now it's Joseph from Massachusetts. Okay, we lost one other call, but we got Joseph out of Massachusetts. What's happening? What's good?
I see you don't like taking my call, Mr. Ellison. I can understand. I know you're a good man.
We haven't seen you. So, it's no, trust me. You can trust me on this. And I don't normally say trust me. I don't like to just throw that about. There's no conspiracy on my part to keep certain callers off, nor anyone. At least I can speak for Reality Check. So you don't have to worry about that. But go ahead.
Can I get to the point?
Sure.
We do a disservice to when good callers like Prince call and talk about how immigration is stealing jobs from African Americans, and our leaders are so quick to defend the illegal immigrants. Even Stevie Wonder could see something wrong with that.
Stevie Wonder can't when there is no big data or like empirical evidence showing that. And that's why I was giving him a chance to speak. I gave him a chance to speak on that, and he couldn't answer my question. Like, where's the empirical evidence of that? And then we have Mike Green on, who's an expert on that kind of stuff, Joseph. And Mike Green made a good point. Like, immigration has always been, since the beginning of this country, a white people's problem. That now they're trying to make it our problem, and it's not. But go ahead.
Could you give me a chance to speak now? I lived a life. I've been all over. I work construction. I work restaurant job. I see what's going on.
Were you doing it as a part of a study? Did you say, hey, you know what? Let me get a little scientific here and empirical. But go ahead. Quick, hurry up, Joseph. Hurry up.
People who care about right or wrong and don't sell out to the white man and design his shoes. But
you talking about not selling out to the white man? You didn't hear coming on here talking about Trump, this Trump, that, selling white man's talk.
Pennsylvania State Police has issued an Amber Child Abduction Alert for Philadelphia PD and Philadelphia County. Philadelphia Police are searching for Nova Ray White, black female, age 1, 2 foot tall, 25 pounds, last seen in 1200 block North 10th Street, Philadelphia, at approximately 8:10 a.m. He was reported abducted by an armed Ronald White, 32 years of age, black male, brown eyes, brown hair, unknown clothing. He fled the scene in a 1998 Toyota Corolla, green in color. Anyone with information, contact Philadelphia Police at 215-686-3174 or 911. Repeating, the Pennsylvania State Police has issued an Amber Child Abduction Alert for Philadelphia PD and Philadelphia County. Philadelphia Police are searching for Nova Ray White, black female, age 1, 2 feet tall, 25 pounds. She was last seen at 1200 block of North 10th Street, Philadelphia, PA, at approximately 8:10 a.m. She was reported abducted by an armed Ronald White, 32 years of age, black male, brown eyes, brown hair, unknown clothing. He fled the scene with her in a 1998 Toyota Corolla, green in color. Anyone with information on the abduction should immediately contact the police by calling 911. For more information, go to www.amber.pa.gov.
Because we got to stop having all these mixed messages when things are so critical in this moment. And then in terms of the inauguration, if folks just look at the history of the of each political administration over the last 50 years, every time the Democrats come in, they got to repair the country. They got to repair what the Republicans did in terms of taking away services, monies, opportunities, laws. I mean, when they come in, they got so much to do to try to dismantle what the Republicans continue to put in place. Because once again, on the Democratic side, other than CETA, I can't think of anything that the Republicans have given, common and poor people an opportunity to advance. So I just want to say that, and just want to, if you don't mind, me, Brother Charles, Martin Luther King said this here one thing, and if folks, he said something in terms that you can't hate, you can't, fight hate with hate. You have to do it with love. And I remember when the Biden administration and Harris administration came in, the newspaper said, love won. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a different mode of action. We are in a state where folks can come together and try to do something because love won. Thank you, my brother, for allowing me to share.
All right. Thanks so much, Tyrone. I appreciate it. Let me go to Horace out of West Philly.
Hey, how you doing?
Horace, what's happening? All right.
Hey, nothing much. Hey, listening to your first guest, the question should be, why do we keep paying into a failing school district? Quick story. Back in 2010, the school district threatened to privatize the facilities department that comprised of about 1,000 workers. The union and the school district agreed for the workers to pay back $10 million a year through salaries. Now you have a teachers union with at least 11,000 members with a teachers population of 8,700 that have a benefit package of $49,000 a year, producing 92% of the schools operating at an F in student achievement and 50% of the high schools operating at 0% in student achievement. It's time to look at the teachers giving back. The contract is up at the end of this year. It's not a question about needing more money and possibly taking away city services, but putting the $3 billion in the right place and getting rid of those who don't care about our children. Again, it's time for a new superintendent and restructuring the whole system.
Time for the current superintendent to go. Totally agree with you on that, Horace. And I said that about over a year ago now. And when I wrote that in the Philadelphia Citizen, I actually got calls from people who were like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you saying fire?" Because I guess it was the first kind of public moment where like someone said fire the superintendent. I'm like, look at the performance, look at the data. And I love when you call, Horace, and you have like the data, you have like the numbers showing that, look, this place is failing. why is this dude, why is he still there? Why isn't the mayor and the rest of and city council and the rest of City Hall doing something bold with respect to Philadelphia public schools? Like, you call that, like, why even call it a school system? Doesn't sound like a school system to me. I know it doesn't sound like way to you, Horace. And I love when you call in, and please keep calling out. I wish we, yeah, we need to continue that conversation. So we'll continue to keep it alive. I did see an email from someone about, I do want to continue. I think it's a good conversation to have as far as the conversation we're going to have on immigration. Like, we'll continue to have it. I did see an email from someone who, like, you know, I'm not caping for, I am always advocating on behalf of of black people and black issues. It's not about making this a brown issue or this is a black and brown thing to me. Just all I'm saying is, and repeating what Mike Green was saying earlier, this conversation or the way people are engaging it, some people are engaging it, it is based on everything we're seeing, based on facts. It's a statement of facts. It's a white nationalist funded and driven conversation and debate. So, you know, it has to be tackled and addressed in a much different way than people are coming at it with me now. Because if you come at it with me, I'm going to sniff it out, and I'm going to deconstruct it and dismantle it. I'm going to be getting North Philly on you. I am sorry, because I'm like, this is a like no white nationalist talking point tolerance zone. We don't tolerate it. We shouldn't tolerate it. I'm not gonna, I know this, and I know this is someone who's worked in those corridors and who has worked in close proximity to people who are carrying out those agendas. So when I smell it, I'm telling you, I'm gonna stamp it out. So, you know, same thing with the vaccine conversation. Y'all still coming, I'm seeing this email here, somebody still talking about, oh, you throwing out government propaganda. Okay, I just told you about the monies, these federal monies that were going to these anti-vaccine organizations that are putting this BS out on places like Facebook, right? And they're getting funding from white nationalist sources. Y'all keep it up. All right, we'll talk about it more tomorrow. We have to go to the source with Andrea Lopez-Sanders. That's coming up next here on Reality Check. Please stay sharp and smart, y'all. And more importantly, stay safe out there. I'll talk to you tomorrow, God willing. And we'll be here in Washington, D.C. on inauguration. Take care.